Hi there, I'm Kevin Gentry, and welcome to the Going Big podcast, where we explore the strategies and stories behind transforming your effectiveness by 10xing your fundraising and marketing. Each week, I'll be sitting down with some of the most influential business leaders, CEOs, and nonprofit visionaries to talk about leadership, the power of giving, and how to make a real impact. If you're ready to go big and to elevate your organization to new heights, you're in the right place. You can find the Going Big podcast on Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, iHeartRadio, Pandora, and YouTube. And don't forget to follow us on social media and visit our website, 10x Strategies, TENX Strategies.com, for some great free resources. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Going Big podcast, and what a special treat to be interviewing today Richard Viguerie. There's no one better who emblemizes the power of going big. In fact, he wrote a book a couple of years ago, Go Big, with respect to your leadership, your marketing, the opportunities that are in front of you with respect to fundraising. This is just right on the mark with respect to the aspirations we have with these podcast interviews of how you can transform your effectiveness by 10xing your fundraising. Richard Viguerie, as many of you know, is considered one of the most consequential political figures of our time. Mostly, but not exclusively, but mostly through the introduction and development of political direct mail, which totally changed the political climate in the 1970s, 80s, and 90s by empowering millions of people to get involved in the political process who were not previously involved, either by giving or by as activists. And we saw that with respect to the realigning of the electorate in 1980 with the election of Ronald Reagan, 1994, many other circumstances. And so this is a real giant of our American history, and certainly a giant of marketing and a giant of fundraising. In fact, he's considered the funding father of the American conservative movement, as many people like to refer to him. Richard, I want to get into a lot of just the nitty-gritty of how you look at the opportunities today for people to become more effectively engaged. And if I could, I'd like to start by asking you, you have told me previously that even though you got involved early in fundraising, in fact, major donor fundraising for Young Americans for Freedom, you decided that the real opportunity was better understanding of marketing. And now today, you argue that fundraising is downstream from marketing. Your best fundraising strategy is really a product of your best marketing strategy. So could you begin to explain that? And then I'd like us to dig into Viguerie's 4 Horsemen of Marketing.
Well, first of all, Kevin, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak about marketing. I've been fortunate to be able to make a study of it for the last 60 plus years, and it's my strongly held belief that there's not a lot of professionalism in nonprofit marketing. And I've often said that I wouldn't dream of flying in an airplane with a pilot who had the similar skills of a person in nonprofit marketing. So I encourage all of our listeners now to make a study of nonprofit marketing. It makes all the difference in the world. When I went to Young Americans for Freedom in New York City in August of 1961, I knew nothing, of course, about marketing, or just I love politics, of course. But anyway, I came in contact regularly with people like Bill Buckley and Bill Rusher, the publisher of National Review, and intellectual giants like James Burnham, Brent Bozell, Frank Meyer. And I just was so enamored with them. I was a University of Houston graduate, didn't go to Yale, Princeton, Harvard. So I, for about a year and a half, I tried to make a deep study of all the things that they had been studying all these years. And after about a year and a half, I realized I wasn't making a lot of progress. So by then I had a wife and a baby. And I went to my wife and said, honey, I've got something here that I think is going to change America, maybe even the world. I don't really know it. I've got to study. Could I be relieved of all household duties? no diapers, yard work, trash. She bought into it. And so I, for 6, 7, 8 years, did a really deep study, many, many hours every day studying marketing. And, giants have come before us in marketing. At that time, it was almost entirely commercial marketing, not much in the nonprofit world. Now, in the last 60 years, we've got a large inventory of really good material about nonprofit marketing. But to your point about the importance of marketing versus fundraising, marketing sets up fundraising. It's like the horse and the cart. First, you put the horse and then the cart. You can't get them reversed. And the marketing identifies who you are, what problem have you been formed to solve, who's going to be the face of the organization, who's going to be involved in the organization, what's your product going to look like, how you're going to package it. It just kind of sets everything up. And then you can put in that cart, you can put grassroots fundraising, you can put major donor fundraising, bequests, soliciting votes, branding yourself, branding your opponents. Everything that you want to do fits into that cart once you understand marketing.
Well, thank you. Let's dig more deeply into that, Richard. And, we've always held your wife, Elaine, in high regard. We have an all new admiration for putting up with you, especially with that special request way back when. But thank goodness that she was able to help you do this, because you changed the world as a result, and you're continuing to change it. But let's dig into that. There are a lot of marketing principles and a lot of marketing frameworks. There are a lot of marketing experts who've come before us. But you've taken 4 very important principles into what you call Viguerie's 4 horsemen of marketing. You start with position, and then differentiation, benefit, and brand. How about we unpack each of those for the benefit of the listeners, and then we'll kind of wrap it all up and talk about the application of that further. But let's start with your position. Whether it was David Ogilvy who developed that first, or whether it was Al Ries and Jack Trout through their very famous trailblazing book, Positioning, whoever it was, they talk about the importance of grabbing a hole in the marketplace, having just one thing that identifies you and only you, and when people think of you, they think of only that thing. Tell us, if you would, why positioning, your position, is the ball game, the foundation, the rock on which everything is built. Tell us why it's so important.
It's so key there, and thank you for the opportunity again to talk about something that's so important to nonprofit marketing. And let me just say to the listeners there that the 4 horsemen are not only for fundraising; they apply to much of life. You're single, you'd like a spouse. How do you differentiate yourself from all that competition? When I asked my wife of 62 years, Elaine, to marry me, I didn't know it at the time, but she was dating someone else who ended up having a great career in the country here. And so I had to separate myself from that competition out there. So you want a spouse, you want a job, you want a raise, you want a promotion. 4 horsemen help you in all of those areas there. So much of life you will find can be benefited by a study and application of the 4 horsemen. Number 1, as you said, is position. And position is it's like a hole in the marketplace. That's all it is, a hole, HOLE, in the marketplace. And it's really what do you do that no one else does? What problem are you trying to solve? And so position is like the Bible tells us, house built on the sand versus the built on rock, very sturdy, can withstand storms. So you get the position right, which is the foundation. That you can build a very tall building, 20, 50, 100 stories. If you get the foundation right, get the foundation wrong, and nothing else will work there. So position is, and it's, by the way, Kevin, it's a private decision. I like to use the example perhaps of Rupert Murdoch. 40 years ago, he wants to start a cable television network. He didn't go out there and study ABC, NBC, CBS. He brilliantly identified a niche market. Half of the country 40 years ago didn't have a conservative television network. So he privately decided he wanted to have that hole in the marketplace. And then next is differentiation. That's number two.
Richard, before you dive into differentiation, let me ask you a little bit more about a position, because I think it's a difficult concept for people to fully grasp. And I think some examples that have been given, historically, Volvo equaled safety, Nordstrom equaled service, FedEx was overnight delivery. Today, Starbucks equals a community for coffee. When you own that, it's not a matter of being more effective or better organized, or you have to own that category. Is that right?
Absolutely. The key word of all that you said there, the key word is category. You have to own a category. Uh, when I started my company in the mid 1960s, I owned a category. People had raised money for hundreds of years, and they had raised money through the mails. They had sold products through the mail, but nobody had ever tried to raise political money through the mails. So that was a private decision that I came up with, and it was a category that I own. So we'll get to a brand in a little bit here, but that's what a brand is something where you own a category. You're doing something no one else is doing. If you develop a new beer, you're not owning a category, obviously. Maybe you could be the first imported beer. Well, no, maybe the first imported beer from this country, or the first imported light beer from this country. So you want to make sure you have a position, a hole in the marketplace, unoccupied by no one else. You want to make sure that you're doing something. There's a need for you to have this organization, because if this doesn't get done, it won't get done. Nobody else is doing it.
And just to make sure, this is important because we live in such an over-communicated world today.
Oh, absolutely. We're massively over communicated society. It used to be we had, people were exposed to 1,000, 1,200 words, advertisements a day. Now it's, five, six, seven, 8,000. With the internet out there, you just got your finger on the delete button, delete, 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 delete. And the same with your postal mail. If you don't grab their attention within 3, 4, 5 seconds, your brilliant ideas and your important project goes in the trash can. So you've got to be able to quickly differentiate yourself from all that competition out there. And position allows you to do that if you do it correctly.
And then one last question. Your point is that a niche, even though it may be smaller, is more potent. And I think that's one of these examples that's sort of counterintuitive. So, for example, you have all these traditional car manufacturers for a long time, and you had luxury cars, you had highly engineered cars like BMW or Mercedes. And then suddenly you have electric cars, and Tesla owned that category for a long time. The percentage of electric cars is very small, but we know that Tesla became a huge brand because they just owned that one niche category. Is that a good example?
Excellent example. And it really helps to be first. You know, very few people could tell you who was the second person to fly solo across the Atlantic, or what was the second college, who was the second pope. People remember the first. And so you want to be the first to own a category, occupy a hole in the marketplace. And when you do that, and you get all the other parts of the four horsemen right, life is downhill with the wind to your back. Get one of them wrong to your audience, and you're going uphill, and with the storm facing you, it's going to be very difficult to succeed.
All right, well, let's go to the second horseman. But by the way, as a graduate of the College of William and Mary, the second oldest university in America after Harvard, I think I can prove the point that nobody knew that William and Mary was number two. All right, differentiation. That's horseman number two. And that's where you say that you want to visually show your hole in the marketplace. What do you mean by that?
Just going back to being number first college out there. If you want to know who's the first of anything out there, just look for the most famous. Most famous college in America is Harvard. And so who was the first woman aviator to fly solo across the Atlantic? Amelia Earhart. She's the most famous aviator of the 1930s. So it makes all the difference in the world to own a category and be first in that category. Uh, Differentiation, Kevin, is what you do publicly. Position, remember, is what you do privately. You decide what hole in the marketplace you want to occupy. And then differentiation is what you do to distinguish yourself from all that competition. Remember, 5,000 or more commercials being thrown at people every day. And so going back to the Rupert Murdoch example, after he had brilliantly decided, he wanted to occupy that niche market, half of the country. He didn't go out there and take out newspaper ads or advertisements on radio or television that he's a conservative network. He hired people like Megyn Kelly, Sean Hannity, Glenn Beck at the time, Tucker Carlson later, Jesse Waters now, Laura Ingraham. And when you see those people, you don't see those people on ABC, CBS, MSNBC. So it identifies who he is. So position is what you do privately to position your organization, and the differentiation is what do you do publicly to let everybody know you've got an organization that they should pay attention to. Maybe it comes through your letter signer. Maybe you've got a pub note out there. Maybe it's something else that you identify with publicly to make yourself stand apart from everybody else out there.
Well, that's great. So many organizations have newsletters that they mail out. Those newsletters may have lots of pictures in them. They may do annual reports. They may do other publications, but so often they all look the same. And the pictures are all the same. They're group shots from a dinner or behind a podium or what have you, and they're not showing their hole in the marketplace. There's very little about that says, oh yeah, that's what they do. So much application to that. All right, well, let's move to horseman number 3, your benefit. Otherwise, sometimes called your USP, your unique selling promise, but your benefit. What exactly do you mean by that?
Savannah, in just a second, but I really like your example on differentiation. And it doesn't matter what your political belief is, what your faith or no faith is. Everybody knows Salvation Army fundraising at Christmas time with the kettle out there outside your stores out there, and that's something that Salvation owns. Those kettles that you can put your change in, your money in at Christmas time to help people who are in need. So benefit, Kevin, is the benefit you receive. Okay, what benefit do you get when you write a check for any amount, $25 or whatever it might be? There, what's the benefit that you get? You see somebody is going to be fed because of this, or that you're going to have your candidate have a better chance of getting elected. They're going to help pay for a billboard or for bumper stickers. So it's the benefit that the donor gets, and there's 4 horsemen, and you can have a hole in the marketplace. You can differentiate. You can have a brand that's perfect, really strong, and you can have a tagline. We'll get to all that. But if you don't offer a benefit, let's say you're a conservative, and you say embassy got a hole in the marketplace. They differentiate with their speakers there. They've got a brand. They've got a tagline, but they don't offer a conservative a benefit. And reverse is true for Fox. They have a position, differentiation, a brand, but they don't offer a benefit to a liberal. So you've got to get all 4 to your audience. You don't have to please everybody out there, but the audience you want to appeal to, you must get all 4, and the benefit is often overlooked. But what is the benefit that you offer the potential donor, buyer, etc.?
Well, Richard, I've heard you use the example of the 2008 presidential contest and the Democratic nomination for that. You want to comment on that?
Yeah, and you see this regularly when you have an open presidential election, as the Democrats did in 2008, as the Republicans did in 2016. In 2008, there were about six national Democrats that ran for the Democrat nomination for president, and of course, the two most famous, one that people will remember quickly, was Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. But there were others. There were Chris Dodd, Connecticut senator. There was Bill Richardson, former governor of New Mexico, and others out there, John Kerry, etc., Edwards. But the so how do you compete against Hillary Clinton? She's the obvious nominee. She's the wife of the former popular president of the Democrat side. So it's very difficult to separate your views from hers. So he came up, or somebody in his campaign came up with an idea that was just totally, completely brilliant.
And
And
you mean
the
by that
idea
Barack
was
Obama? You mean Barack Obama?
Barack Obama. Barack Obama's came up with the idea of this promotion, that he said to every Democrat audience that was speaking before, his ads, etc., on television. I wasn't in the Senate, he said, in when this vote on the Iraq War came up. She voted for the Iraq War. I would have opposed it. And that one idea electrified Democrat audiences and propelled him to the nomination and onto the White House. So he separated himself from Hillary Clinton on one issue. You've got to have that one hole in the marketplace that separates you from all that competition. And somewhat the same thing in 2016 with the Democrats, the Republicans. There were 17 Republicans that ran for president in 2016. And for most of them, to this day, I don't really know much of the difference between Chris Christie and Jeb Bush and Bobby Jindal and this one or that one, Kasich, etc. But Donald Trump separated himself with his, make America great again. And by the way, in terms of you to ask any of these candidates what separates you from the others, they would say, I'm smarter than those others, aren't they? The public says, no, you're all smart. You wouldn't be on that stage. So you have to have something that differentiates yourself. And the vast majority of them fail to do that.
But wouldn't you also say there's the benefit? I mean, if you're a Democratic Party activist in 2008 and you're against the war in Iraq, you want somebody that's going to fight for your position. So the only one doing that, Barack Obama was arguing, was him. But the benefit was to the voter who had that position. I think that it's a great illustration not only of in terms of the position. He was the only one to have that particular position. The differentiation could have been shown about any of the visual images about bad things going on in Iraq and just the reminder of senators voting. But the benefit was if you held that position, which I believe was held by a majority of Democratic Party activists voting in the primaries in 2008, that was a winning approach. Well, with that said, let's go to horseman number 4, your brand. How is horseman number 4 your brand?
That's the ball game, Kevin. And it's regularly, I'm so disappointed when I'm talking to people in marketing who have, that's their profession. Maybe they graduated with a degree in marketing and they don't really fully, properly understand brand. But it's relatively simple. One, it's a combination of the other three. It's a combination of your position, your differentiation, your benefit. It's what makes you singular, one of a kind. Seth Godin, the brilliant communicator, wrote many books out there. One of them is called The Purple Cow. And so I live out in the country and regularly pass fields of 40 brown cows here, 50 black and white ones over there. But if one of them is a purple cow, they would stand out. And so most people in life don't separate themselves from everybody else and they kind of blend in with everything else out there. And so with brand, you want to separate yourself from everybody else out there. And simply because you have a famous name, a well-known name, doesn't mean you have a brand. United Airlines, Delta, American, no brand, very famous names. But most of us, when we go to the airport, all we want to do is leave at a certain time and arrive at a certain time. It doesn't really matter what airline we fly. They're basically comparable. But now Southwest has got a brand. Singapore Airlines has got a brand, luxury, uh, and Virgin Airlines got a brand there. So you want a brand changes everything in your life. And so often in fundraising, Kevin, people are having a hard time, particularly these days, because contributions have dropped about 25%, costs have gone up 25%. Competition is severe out there. And so, how do you separate yourself from all of those other people out there? And you do it with your brand and you lean into your brand. Your brand is what makes you singular, one of a kind. You own a category. You're providing a benefit that no one else does out there. And if this uh, organization is not successful, then this important item here will go undealt with. And so it's the ball game. And if your contributions are down, you're not doing well. It's almost always you got a problem with your brand. Your brand is weak. Lean into your brand, and it'll change your fundraising.
All right, just a couple of follow-up questions on your brand. First of all, some people get confused that your brand is your logo or the font and colors that you use. That's not your brand.
Absolutely not. Your brand is your position, your differentiation, your benefit. It's what you do. It's what separates you from. It's what you're in business for. What problem are you trying to solve? Your brand is. I regularly go to this supermarket. I'm an unusual male. I like to shop, and when I do, I frequently buy paper towels. And there's some very good paper towels out there, but I buy Viva. And my dad before me, and it differentiates from all those others paper towels because it's a premium paper towel. It's like having a handkerchief in your pocket. Uh, and so if they're giving away other paper towels, I'm going to say thank you very much. I'm going to pay money for Viva because it's a brand, and I buy that brand. And it's in much of life these days we're seeing people don't are not sold products, they buy products. I recently bought a used car, and I knew what I wanted. I wanted a black Lexus. No one sold me the car. I bought the black Lexus from the person who gave me the best price. So we buy brands. People may deny, quite frankly, that they go with the leader, but that's usually the case. They buy the most popular product out there, which is often the one with the strongest brand.
Richard, often I ask nonprofit leaders, what is your brand? What is your hole in the marketplace? And so many of them will say, well, we're much more effective than our competition. We're better organized. We're better run. We're the best out there. That's not a brand, right?
That is so wrong. That's what at the beginning of the podcast, Kevin, I made the point that it's very, very few people in nonprofit marketing that really do understand marketing to begin with, and they certainly don't understand brand. And they think that, well, I'm a household name. Everybody knows me. United Airlines is a household name. Delta, American. Everybody knows those airlines, but they're not brands. Okay, Southwest is a brand, and it is the most used airline. They fly more passengers any given day than all the other lines, any other airline out there. So brand will propel you forward if you do it correctly. So marketing study, and at my tender age, I'm being 91 very soon. I spend 2 to 3 hours a day, 6 days a week studying marketing and business. And the vast majority of the people in nonprofit marketing, communication, leadership of nonprofit organizations. None of us, almost none of us, went to school to learn to do what we're doing now. So you've got to learn it. I go back, and none of us would go to a doctor who learned by his gut or the seat of his pants. You want a deviant. It is deviant behavior. What doctors do, put people on tables and cut them up and save their life and change their life. The same with what we do. It is learned behavior, and it is nothing that you do by your instincts. So I've spent literally 45,000 hours studying marketing. And you want to you want to really study your profession, and the idea that you learn to do it by the seat of your pants or your gut feelings is just it's very sad. It just you're not going to be at the top of your game. And by the way, this competition, Kevin, in nonprofit marketing is so thin out there. If you make a deep study in 4, 5, 6 years, you can be in the top 5% of the profession because the competition is so thin.
Couldn't agree more. All right. Well, Richard, I want to move on to a couple more. And as we wrap up, but I want to note something also. I think that's a great illustration. You've done extraordinary things in your life, many, many remarkable things, help build so many organizations, do so many important things. People who know you have so much admiration for you. But for all that, for 60 years, your brand is direct mail. Direct mail equals Richard Viguerie. Richard Viguerie equals direct mail. Any comment on that?
Well, that's very true. I was in a meeting years ago that Jack Kemp organized, and about 6, 8, maybe more conservative leaders around the table, and he wanted them to meet Netanyahu, now the Prime Minister of Israel. And so each person goes around the room, just says their name, and I just say Richard Viguerie, and Netanyahu points at me and says, "Direct mail." And that was 25, 30 years ago. So that was my brand then, and it is now. The it is just
A great example.
let
It's a
me just
great.
mention one other thing along that line, Kevin. Uh, I've had been fortunate to have a lot of success in life and have been had a lot of experiences, and I wouldn't have done any of that without mentors. Mentors are so important in life, and I encourage
Hold that
everybody.
thought. Hold that thought, Richard. We're going to come back to mentors at the very end. Hold that thought
All
because we
right.
have one more important thing to cover, and that's a lagniappe.
Yeah,
And
was
that plays to your Cajun roots. It's a French Louisiana term, an extra benefit, a bonus. So we've had the 4 horsemen of marketing, but there's a fifth. There's an extra bonus. Tell us about your tagline.
tagline is so very, very important, and it should be a fifth horseman. It is that important. Okay. Let's say you're a candidate for public office. Your name means nothing to the person. You could be a liberal, a conservative, a centrist, a libertarian, a socialist. You don't know. And so you need a tagline to separate yourself from all that competition out there, whether it's an organization, and most people's nonprofit doesn't explain what it is that they do. It doesn't tell people what your role in the marketplace. It's very brief example, one of our clients for many years is a veterans organization, and there are dozens of good veterans organizations out there. Ours is called the Coalition Salute America's Heroes. I told the founder, a dear friend, that it was a terrible name. He said, "No, I like the name." So we came up with the tagline: "Providing emergency aid to seriously wounded GIs in the war on terror." Uh, Dozens of good organizations in the veterans of arena, as I said, but not one of them deals with providing emergency aid to seriously wounded GIs in the war on terror. And it separates them from everybody else out there. And in seconds, people can get the purpose of the organization. And if they want to support that cause, they can do so. And it keeps it from your brilliant marketing piece from going in the trash can. So, and by the way, tagline is something that applies only to you. And as you said earlier, being efficient and more careful with people's money and more effective is not a differentiation, and it certainly is not a reason to put it in your tagline. And if your tagline can be properly, honestly, credibly used by anybody else out there in your market, tear it up and keep writing till you get something that separates you from all the competition. Not just, by the way, not just in your head, but in the public's head, public's mind.
Richard, you referred to some past presidential campaigns. In 2016, Jeb Bush's sort of campaign slogan was Jeb, exclamation point, as if the exclamation point was the tagline. It didn't say anything, but we also know someone else running for president had a very cleverly crafted tagline, which, for better or for worse, has served him very well. Make America Great Again. You want to comment on that before we move on?
Well, I think that's the most powerful political slogan, certainly in the last 40 years. And liberals and Democrats and conservatives, Republicans will all agree it's probably the most effective slogan, tagline in the last 40 years. Going back to Ronald Reagan in 1980, he came up with a very effective one. Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? Former governor of Virginia, where you and I live here, George Allen, uh, said, if you do the crime, you do the time. That's a tagline. And by the way, it's a tune you can whistle to. His successor, Jim Gilmore, came up with no car tax. The present governor of Virginia, Glenn Youngkin, says no CRT taught in Virginia schools. So you need that tagline that propels you forward and separates you from the competition.
All right. So, Richard, you touched on continual learning. You're a continual learner. You even commented me to the other day that you thought there was a new seminar that Bob Cialdini was doing that you ought to attend at the ripe age of 91. Why is continual learning so important? Haven't you learned everything there is to know by now?
Not at all. I'm a better marketer, Kevin, today than I was 10 years ago. I'm light years better than I was 20, 25 years ago. And you wouldn't want to go to a doctor or a lawyer who had stopped learning 20, 25 years ago. So there's just so much to know out there. And let me just say, by the way, you learn from so many people in the commercial world. When I started in my career 60 plus years ago, there was very little nonprofit material out there I could learn from. So I learned mostly from the commercial world, including people like Peter Drucker. And Drucker brilliantly wrote about business, but you can apply what he wrote also to the nonprofit world. And one of the things he said is very important is that a business or a nonprofit organization does two things. It innovates and it markets. And very few people in nonprofit leadership focus on marketing. They focus primarily on innovating, on coming up with ideas to solve this problem or that problem. And they fail to spend any significant amount of time on marketing. But you must do innovation and you must do marketing if you lead an organization.
Well, podcast listeners, you'll be pleased to know that this conversation with Richard about the four horsemen of marketing, plus the tagline, was recently put into a little booklet called Viguerie's Four Horsemen of Marketing, which you can get from Amazon. I know it's already available, the Kindle edition. The print edition should be available soon. It's there. It's a great price. It's there at cost. And hopefully you can take advantage of it. Share it with others. There's a lot of great lessons in this little booklet. So bring it all together, Richard. Sir Isaac Newton is supposedly said that he could see further by standing on the shoulders of giants. You want to elaborate on the meaning of that quote and what you would recommend everybody do that's listening today do with respect to finding and learning from mentors?
Yeah, they made all the difference in the world to me in my career. I was fortunate to have four mentors, Kevin. Three of them are deceased. One, Dan Sullivan, a strategic coach, is very much alive, and he's a young 80-year-old. And uh, I am I'm a turtle on a stump. Live out in the country, as I said, and I walk out in the fields. And if I come across a stump, tree stump, and I see a turtle on it, I know something. I know somebody came along recently and put that turtle up there. That turtle didn't climb up that stump, okay? I am a turtle on a stump. And so many people, I think, if you talk to them and have been successful in life, they will tell you the importance of a mentor. I went to New York in 1965 to study marketing by the Direct Marketing Association, and I was taught by a man, Ed Mayer, who was just a giant in marketing. And he came to my office after that once a month for maybe 12, 15 years. And he died rather suddenly of a heart attack. And a few weeks later, I get a phone call, and a man said, your guru has just died. Can I be your new guru? I said, you got the job. And that was the legendary Dick Benson, who's just a giant in marketing. And he's passed on now. And so, uh, we people have made so many mistakes in marketing, and gurus and mentors, they will be familiar with those. They will know those, and it prevents you from making the same mistakes that have been made so many times by others. And by the way, there are hundreds of marketing books out there, and maybe most of them are worth reading and all. But I don't spend my time on any books in marketing except about 12, 15, 20 by the giants. Seth Godin and Robert Chaldean and Al Reese and Jack Trout. Tell my team of 90 plus people, you don't read Al Reese and Jack Trout, you memorize them. They are so good. And you want to study brands. We've talked a fair amount about brands. The Origin of Brands by Al Reese and Laura Reese, his daughter. First 25 pages, you read it. I must have read it 8 times, 9 times. It will really, really help you understand brands. If you read Al Reese and Laura Reese's book, The Origin of Brands, the first 25, the whole book is important. First 25 pages will change your life.
Great advice. And I think you list all those books out in the back of the Viguerie's Four Horsemen of Marketing. So another reason to get that little booklet. Richard, one last question related to this, and that is, how does one find a mentor, and how does one invite someone to become a mentor, or how does one invite oneself to become a mentee or a protege?
Question, Kevin. I said I was fortunate to have these 4 mentors, and they saw something in me, particularly the direct mail, direct marketing people, Ed Mayer, and Dick Benson, and before them, Marvin Liebman. And they've all been dead several decades now, but their work is being carried on by me and my team and the people that I have mentored, and my employees who have gone on to carry on the work in other organizations. So I regularly am asked by people to help mentor them, and so I think about them and learn about their visions, their goal for the life. And if you want to become a top level marketer, make lots of money, retire at age 55, sail the Caribbean, good luck, God bless you. But I got no time for that, because when I go on, I would like my work to be carried on for 50, 100 more years by others out there. And so if you want to find a really high level marketer, explain to him, communicate to him, let that person know the benefit to him. We'll go back to the 4 horsemen. It applies so much in life, not just for that next fundraising letter you're writing there, but what's the benefit to the mentor for you to work with him? So make sure you've done the 4 horsemen when you go to people you would like to mentor you. You've done your position, differentiation, benefit, brand, and tagline.
All right. Final question, Richard. You wrote a book a couple of years ago, Go Big. This podcast is called Going Big. I know you and I both share a view that there's no shortage of funds. It's only a shortage of good ideas where those funds could be applied. That was something that was said by our old friend Jerry Hunsinger, another important mentor. We've got to do better if we really want to solve the problems in the world. The world is on fire. To get to the root causes of the problems, we've got to offer big vision, big solutions to what we're doing, and really just truly go big. Would you kind of close us out with your passion for that particular subject?
Very, very difficult to find people who really know marketing. And then when you take it to the next step and find somebody who's an entrepreneur who knows marketing. There are very, very few people like that, but it's so key. Kevin, we all know people who really know marketing. They studied it, they know they're good copywriters, they're this and that type of thing, but they lack that entrepreneurial spirit. And if you don't have that entrepreneurial spirit, it's kind of like my car right now. It's a very nice car, and it's full of gas right now because I'm going to take a trip tonight. But it's not going anywhere. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't help anybody. I can turn it any way you want. But when I start the motor, I can go to Florida, I can go to California, I can go to New York. So you have to have that energy out there. And like you, I know most of the national conservative leaders out there, and in my opinion, quite frankly, too many of them, very many of them, have low energy. And on the left, so much energy cut with a knife. Okay, but if you're on a board of directors of organizations out there and you're not achieving the results you want, look for somebody with energy, entrepreneurial energy, and then you go hire the people who know marketing. But you need somebody running the organization who has a high level of energy. And the Bible talks about that. Don't be lukewarm, be hot or cold. And God could take a bad person, Saul, and make Paul out of him. His number one salesman in that time. Paul had energy, and you want energy. You want somebody to lead the organization who has the energy. You can bring on people who know marketing, but to lead the organization, number one above everything else, perhaps somebody with energy. And by the way, the very definition of an entrepreneur is a risk taker. So somebody that's prepared to be an entrepreneurial risk taker. And as you've said, lack of entrepreneurial risk taking is maddening. It's like our people have lost the will to win.
Well, Richard Viguerie, this has been a real treat for us all and a tremendous benefit to us if we're able to take these lessons and apply them effectively for our shared principles to try to get to the root causes of the problems we're trying to address. Just as a quick summary, if you're serious about winning, if you're serious about making a difference, obviously you want to have more resources to put to your cause. But our belief, as Richard spelled out, is in order to have those resources, you've got to understanding and apply the lessons of marketing. Viguerie's 4 Horsemen of Marketing is a great distillation of it. Again, position, differentiation, benefit, and brand, and of course your tagline to express the promise that you're offering. Don't forget the continual learning piece. Richard spends 3 hours every day, even at the ripe old age of 91. We can all do that. I know he does that 6 days a week because there's new material all the time, but we can go back and really study the classics. I know when I go back and read some, I see stuff that I failed to see 7 times before. And then, of course, the very tremendous value of finding mentors. You could be a mentor, but you can benefit from mentors in many ways. And Richard Viguerie, we thank you for being such a consequential mentor to so many still today. Richard Viguerie, thanks for joining us today. Thanks for listening to the Going Big podcast. I hope today's conversation inspired you to take your fundraising and marketing strategies to a whole new level. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and leave us a review on Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, iHeartRadio, Pandora, or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also watch all of our episodes on YouTube. And don't forget to follow us on social media and visit our website, 10xstrategies.com. That's TENX strategies.com for more great content and for free resources to help you go big with your leadership and with your giving. I'll see you on the next episode of the Going Big podcast.